All right, high rollers, we've had him on before. He is back to talk about the release of his much anticipated new book. He's from California, professional poker player, coach, and prolific writer. Author of A Rubber Band Story, his hugely popular Elements of Poker, and now he's out with his latest offering, Painless Poker. Tommy Angelo joins us. Tommy, thanks for being a high roller today, man.
Thanks, Derek. Glad to be back.
Congratulations on the new book. Before we get into that, last time we had you on, I threw some quotes at you. I'm wondering if I can do the same today.
Sure.
All right, well, I got two from your Twitter account and one from your website. On Twitter, there is a quote from yesterday, I believe, where it says, "Only you knew when you knew better."
Well, some of these quotes I'm putting out there, they show up in the book and they're oftentimes a summary sentence for like a whole paragraph. And then they kind of stand alone. But this one, what it really is talking about is from a poker perspective. When we're evaluating our own play and we're driving home in the car, or, it's after an online session, there was some big pot and we made a mistake, and, we might get friends to analyze it and they say, well, that wasn't that bad of a play. Most people would have done that. It's okay. But we know when we screwed up. We know when we knew better. And only we know. We can talk to our friends and they could say, oh, you should have known better. And you might think, well, I didn't know better. Or they might say, oh, it's okay, not that big a deal. And you're like, but I shouldn't have made that mistake.
Right.
So that we can get outside help, but we only have the own voice in our own head to listen to guide us.
Absolutely. You can lie to everybody else, but you can't lie to the man in the mirror. A lot of times it happens to me. I make a bad play and I run the hand through 7 different people before I get the response I want. There's another one from your Twitter. It says there's usually tomorrow. I was intrigued by that one.
Yeah, that's another one that I wish I had the paragraph handy that came from. The whole idea there is it's a play on words, as many of these are, because the phrase we often hear is there's always tomorrow. And that's a little excuse we give ourselves, or a way to make ourselves feel better when things aren't going well. And it's a useful saying, well, there's always tomorrow, right? Well, the point of this line is that it's kind of related to a part in the book about death and planning for death and being just aware of death for ourselves and our parents and everything else. And the whole idea is that, well, no, there isn't always tomorrow. There's usually tomorrow. And the point there is the idea that we've heard many times about living today as if it's the last day of your life, and living it fully and giving it the very best you can and being good to your parents and all that stuff that we've heard many times, like live like there's no tomorrow. It's just another way of putting that. There's usually tomorrow.
Right, okay. And this one's from your website, TommyAngelo.com. 75% of all poker players think they play better than the other 75%.
Well, I think we know what that means, which is that we tend to over-evaluate our own performance. And that's just another way of saying that. I actually came up with that little saying many years ago back at 2 + 2, because that's the way it seemed. It seemed like if you took all the players and asked, how do you rate yourself compared to the others, it seemed like there was an imbalance along the spectrum.
Yeah, it's tough to sit down at a poker table and say to yourself, hey, I'm the fish in this game. It's really tough to do that.
Right.
Congratulations on the new book. Again, it's called Painless Poker. You can check out all the reviews and take a real serious look at it. Again, the website's TommyAngelo.com. The book, Painless Poker. We talk about painful moments in poker, that drive home in the car. I've had it many times, whether I'm playing poker on tilt and I know I am, or whether it's just not my night, and something inside me tells me, Derek, it's time to get up and leave this game. You can join the game tomorrow when you feel better. This is how the book starts for you, right? One of the worst poker moments in your life, a drive home.
Yeah, the absolute worst moment of my life. It was at the end of a few days of playing in St. Louis. One of the reasons I started the book like that, the very first line is, don't even talk to me about how bad it hurts, is that the book later goes into a lot about other personality types besides me and the type of pains we have and what we can do about it. And when you get into the meat of the book and you have these other characters, they tell their story of greatest pain about the worst moment of their life. And I thought, well, I'll just start the book with my story, my worst moment. And it's kind of a long version of the story that gives a background of me, and also sets it kind of paints the picture of what the poker scene was like back in 1995, long before the explosion, and when I was grinding full time. And yeah, it was an extremely brutal hand situation, a perfect storm. But then the hardest part was the long drive home, because I was all the way down in St. Louis, far from my hometown of Columbus at the time. And the drive was so painful that I kept pulling over to sleep, even though I wasn't even a little bit tired. Just because I was so depressed, I could not bear to be awake. And I had no idea what was going on psychologically at the time. I learned this later from professionals. But it took me 22 hours to drive a 7-hour drive because the level of depression I was in was so heavy, I was just paralyzed.
When you talk about the perfect storm, I mean, often, and I'm sure since the poker boom, even, some of these kids, they have a score, they drop out of school, they think they're going to make poker their life. Then the reality hits them a year down the road that a lot of these players are better than me. Maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. And over the course since 2003, there's got to be so much pain in poker. And it really can be a perfect storm, outside forces as well. And sometimes that pain erupts right at the poker table.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think that's one of the common thing that we share of poker is like, yeah, there's the excitement of playing and winning and all that, but the pain is just unique, I think, to any human activity. And it's also, and I've heard this feedback from many others, that it's such a growing opportunity because poker players, unlike anyone else, are forced to deal with their mental problems that arise from tilt and impatience and boredom because it directly affects our net worth. So if somebody has a, quote unquote normal job, they go in and they work. Well, if they're feeling a little bit bad, they go through the motions and they still get their paycheck. But we're in a situation where if we're a little off whack, it costs us, a significant amount of money. And so what that does is it forces poker players in a unique way to really examine what goes on with this pain and all that.
So you have that 22-hour drive. It should have only taken you 7. It's a real wake-up call for you because you're trying to figure out what goes on. You end up at the Painless Poker Clinic. And let me read this. There's characters there, right? And you write, those characters are totally made up, except that they aren't. We know these people. We are these people. There's Charlie Archer, an innocent online grinder. Mr. Lee, a big loser at Commerce Casino. Alfonso Calabri, a persnickety artistic type. Sonny Moon, a live pro stoner. We've seen lots of those. Victor Selvo, a lawyer with family who plays at Foxwoods every chance he gets. And then there's Mick Stanley, a famous high-stakes cash game pro, is kind of a dick, really. I mean, you've sort of outlined all the characters that you might see in your average casino on an average Friday night.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tried to do. And these characters, just to set the scene a little bit, Chapter 2 goes into a place called the Painless Poker Clinic. And this is actually a fictional setting. It's still me talking. It's still me as the narrator telling the story. And the storyline is that I'm teaching a class, a 2-day seminar, to these 7 characters. And the way these characters developed was almost random at the beginning because I had quite literally collected a spreadsheet of poker pain. This is as a result of a lot of coaching. So I've coached a lot of different types of people. And there are certain types of pain, like Victor's pain of wanting to go play every weekend, but he's got all these family obligations. So with each of these characters, I assigned various pains to each character, and that's how they were built. I even referenced it. It's almost like Frankenstein's monsters that I was creating. But then once I started writing it and writing the dialogue at the clinic and putting words in their mouths, they really started to come to life, just like what happens with fiction writing. And the feedback I've received so far has been very positive from people saying things like that they could really relate to the lessons in the book because it comes in the form of very realistic dialogue rather than just a third-person voice saying, hey, you shouldn't tilt. You've got all these examples and meaningful dialogue, and I did try to write it in a way that's very entertaining to read and keeps the pages turning. And so far, the feedback I've received has been very positive. People are really enjoying reading it, the act of reading it, and benefiting from the material that's in there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was doing some research for our interview today, and I came across a video on YouTube from a guy called the Chip X Tractor, and he was talking about your book, Elements of Poker, gave you a super positive review, and was talking about the fact that Painless Poker is out and how excited he and his poker-playing friends were. So yeah, you're getting some great reviews. Speaking of which, Phil Galfond, I watched the video. This was hilarious. They made a movie out of your book, and they called it Words, featuring Phil Galfond. Wasn't that a classic?
Actually, the trailer that's at the top of my website, TommyAngelo.com, it says, "See what these people are saying about me." It has Phil and Daniel Anderson and Jay Rosencrantz and Harry Koska. That's kind of a comedy piece. I hope people go see it because it's pretty funny. It has a little bit about the book in there, but it's basically Phil and Danielle. I put this movie together saying some kind of funny things about the book. And then you scroll down a little bit, and then there's a movie called Words, which is basically just a collection of all my pithy sayings that I've collected over the years, just strung together. So there's a lot of interesting things to see at my site right now. I've kind of overhauled the whole thing, and there's some pretty good stuff up there right now, I think.
Yeah, the site looks great, man. I was on it today. Way better than last time I checked it out. It looks superb. Again,
Thanks.
Jay Rosencrantz, you mentioned his name. We've had him on before. Of course, the star of 2 Months, 2 Million. He produced the documentary Bet Raise Fold, and you were featured in that documentary. That must have been pretty special.
It was. And in fact, that's where I met Daniel Anderson, who's one of the three people, one of the main people that are profiled in there. They shot a scene for me in the movie that was going to be in there. And then right after that is when Black Friday happened. Black Friday happened. That was April 15, 2011, while they were shooting the movie. And it's sort of like, if you're making a documentary, let's say, of a guy, and then all of a sudden he does something interesting while you got the camera running, you sort of change the plot of the movie. And that's what happened.
Wow.
Because of Black Friday, the whole scope of the movie changed. I mean, Jay's movie, Bet Raise Fold, and my scene was deleted, as it turns out. But it was great because I got to meet Danielle through that, and we've become really good friends too.
I know you coach a lot of players, all types of players. You've also coached high-profile players like Phil Galfond and Jay Rosencrantz. I'm wondering, does the coaching session differ when you coach an elite player like those guys as opposed to the average person?
Well, no. It doesn't change because they're elite players. It changes because of how skilled they are. So with any given client, the amount of time that we spend on betting strategy is directly proportional to how bad they play. So I have nothing to teach Phil Galfond about how to bet, but I might be able to help him with mental stability stuff. So yeah, with the top pros, about the only thing we would be working on is the non-betting topics.
Well, your coaching program is called the Tiltless Program. Your book is Painless Poker. There's a lot of pain in tilt. I am intrigued by that line. You say those characters are totally made up, except that they aren't. And you see them all the time at the poker table. I guess there's two parts to it, right, Tommy? First of all, the pain aspect within, you've got to sort that out so you don't play on tilt. But also, you got to learn to recognize it in your opponents because you can start to take advantage of those people.
Oh, for sure. And these days, people can go on tilt and kind of hide it. So a guy might lose a pot. Let's say he gets a set cracked, and then he folds the next three hands. He looks okay, but I'm watching him very closely because sometimes a guy like that's about to blow his top. Yeah, you got to really, really pay attention to everybody's tilt fluctuation, I believe, to catch those moments when they've kind of lost their cool.
So you got all these characters. They're at the Painless Poker Clinic. You sit down with them, you chat. A lot of emotional stuff, a lot of scenarios within poker, gambling, and life. What happens at the end? I don't want you to give it away, but I know the final chapter is called The Big Showdown, or it's called The Showdown.
Yeah, this book has an ending, and I'll give a little spoiler, which is, okay, well, I'll just sidetrack a little bit. I kind of like books and movies sometimes where you can tell that the ending was devised all the way, and it all leads up to like one moment. And that's what this is. The actual plot doesn't end until the very, very last sentence of the book. So the last chapter is very interesting. It's also interesting because of the merging. It sort of merges the fictional and the real. So I'm not going to say any more.
Okay, we'll have to check it out. The book, Painless Poker. I want to go back to that drive home from St. Louis after a terrible moment in your life at poker. It was a 22-hour miserable drive. I don't know how soon after that you started with the meditation, but that's a real discipline that a lot of poker players could benefit from.
Oh, yeah. So what happened was I didn't start meditating until 2003, so it was 8 years after that story took place. And it turned my whole life around and my poker game around immediately. And then when I started coaching soon after that, I've always taught some degree of meditation to every client I've ever had. And as the years gone on, and I've coached more and more professional level players who are interested in lopping off their C game, more so than improving their A game, the meditation has played more and more a part of my coaching program, to where now I have some clients who we're done talking about coaching years ago, but I still might coach them on their meditation practice. And how to get started with the meditation practice and why is examined in Painless Poker. And it was such a fun venue to do that, because I have Charlie Archer, who's like super critical thinker, Alfonso Calibri, super critical thinker, and they're coming at me with questions like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? And all the stuff that people think about meditation as being bullshit, or I don't have time, or my brain's too busy, and all the standard objections and obstacles, they're all covered in here. But instead of it just being me writing out sentences, it's in the form of active dialogue with actual characters who are asking the questions that people ask me all the time. And it turned out to be a really good venue to discuss poker issues and meditation issues.
You talk about active dialogue. I find it interesting because last time you were on, you mentioned something to me that I still think about every now and then. I don't know how you do it, but you say to me that you can go play poker for hours on end, fold every hand, get up and leave when you want, at any given time where that voice tells you, hey, Tommy, it's time to leave. And that whole time, you don't speak. You don't say a word at the poker table. What's that all about, and what are the benefits there? I mean, I guess you pick up and you're just in the moment listening to others.
Well, the benefits are, there's several reasons I play what I call mum poker.
I mean, that's not easy to do, right? Mum poker is not an easy thing to do.
Well, for some people, it's a natural way. It just depends. I mean, you're a chatty type, so it would be hard for you, and I probably wouldn't even coach you to do it. But for me, and this is the thing, is I used to talk all the time at the table for years. So it was a big change for me. But what happened was, the quieter I got, the more money I made. And the reason I made more money is because I was winning both sides of what I call the information war. I'm sending less information, and I'm receiving more information. And so whenever people are talking or whenever people are moving, because I'm not talking, I'm much more likely to receive all the information that's available. And because I'm not talking, I'm giving up nothing about my thoughts whatsoever. I don't mean overt things like, talking about hands. I mean, people have no idea what I'm thinking about ever, because I give them no clue. And I think not only is that to my advantage from an information standpoint, but it also creates a sort of a impervious, impenetrable table image. Because no matter what happens, I just don't flinch. I don't blink. No matter how bad the pots are, if some guy shows me a bluff, it just doesn't matter. They get no rise out of me whatsoever.
I mean, I would have to work at that. I'd like to try it sometime to see the outcome. I don't know if I could do it, to be honest with you.
One of the things I do when I coach players is we play in the same game multiple times, because it's like a 4-day program. And when they see me doing that and they say, okay, I want to do that, I'm like, okay, it's going to take you like 2 or 3 years. And I mean that. It takes a long time if you're a naturally chatty person. See, if somebody who's chatty just stops talking, that's not going to make them any more money, because it's going to cause more tilt for them because it's so unusual. The only way that not talking can be profitable is if you're not only not talking, but you're at peace with that. And that has to do with completely letting go of the ego, because our impulse is to talk because that's our inner self has stuff to say. It cares about what other people think. And there's just a world of busyness going in our mind that causes us to talk.
You just mentioned the quieter you got, the more profitable you were. This is one of the issues that I'm sure a lot of people have. I have it. You're at the poker table, and things outside, whether it's a bill, whether it's something at your job, whether it's a relationship going awry, these outside forces are kind of renting space in your head. And there you are with King 10 suited on a flop, and you're trying to figure out what to do, but you're thinking about your ex-girlfriend, you're thinking about that job offer, that boss, what he said to you today. I mean, all these things need to be quietened and down before you can actually play at your best.
Absolutely. That's what mindful breathing and sitting up does, is it gives people, through training, the ability to be aware that their mind is busy and it's thinking about this, and then consciously letting those thoughts go and coming back to the game. It doesn't happen randomly. It takes effort.
Again, the website is TommyAngelo.com. And Tommy, I was on the website today. It really looks great, as I had mentioned. And you've got an online store. You've got some deals there, too.
Yeah, I just set up a bonus code for your listeners. If they go to my site and buy any of my books and just type in High Roller Radio in the bonus box, it's $5 off. And also, any print books that are bought at my site even without any discounts, you automatically get the ebook for free. And all print books at my site are autographed by me.
Well, there you go, folks. Go to TommyAngelo.com, bonus code High Roller Radio, and you get a pretty nice deal plus an autograph. Tommy Angelo, at the Tommy Angelo on Twitter. TommyAngelo.com is the website, and the new book out, much anticipated, Painless Poker. Tommy, good luck with the book. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay, Derek. Thanks a lot.